Welcome back to the 10-Minute Professional, the podcast designed to help you navigate the political landscape of corporate America while maintaining your sanity and hopefully not becoming a soulless monster. My name is Gabe, I am your host, and I believe personal and professional development needs to happen around the clock. Time is money, and money's needed for life, so let's not waste any time and get to work so we can get back to focusing on our lives. I'd like to share a personal anecdote, which I understand may sound out of left field, but bear with me. My first foray into the world of podcasting was named Anyone Can Run, and was intended for new members of the running community who wanted to complete their first race. These were long-form conversations ranging from 30 minutes to an hour, where I touched on various technical aspects of the running experience, such as keeping pace, fueling for a race, race day etiquette, interval training, technical and tangible topics such as those. However, after doing it for a few months, I began to receive questions from listeners about the mental aspects of completing races, pushing through the mental wall, which all athletes are familiar with, how to stay focused while running, and inquiries of a similar ilk. After a while, I shifted the focus of Anyone Can Run to be more about what I've dubbed the marathon mentality or marathon mindset. And I named the concept of establishing this as cerebral cultivation because I love alliteration. These conversations were lengthy and provided context on decisions I made every time I'd sit and record. I thought the conversation was too dang long, and most of the time, when I tried to truncate them, I struggled. Not because I was married to any of the words, but because I felt the need to qualify so many of my statements and provide additional reasoning and context. I know how easy it is for people to hear a soundbite and latch onto it, ignoring the all-important context of the situation and personal sentiment. I cannot count how many times I nixed recordings because I felt the core message wasn't conveyed correctly through my tone, or the scripts I composed felt too direct, or I thought I sounded like too abrasive or just like a know-it-all. When the idea for the 10-Minute Professional first popped in my head, I had two parameters I knew I needed to stick to. First, a set time limit because I don't have tons of patience and I don't expect anyone to have any for me. Second, the filter I put my previous work through would be removed, meaning I wouldn't care if I thought any of the content was too direct or curt, so long as I felt like I was embodying the golden rule and maintaining professionalism. Something we touch on regularly during our conversations here is remaining cognizant of how our communications can be perceived by our audience. With Anyone Can Run, as a former certified personal trainer and marathoner, I did my best to ensure the conversations mirrored the tone I took when I was actively training clients. However, for our discussions here, I want a different approach. My focus is on you, big brain professional who, like me, didn't receive any guide or instruction manual on how to navigate the corporate world. I'll never be one of those people like Webster's dictionary defines self-awareness as blah blah blah, because the denotation of a word isn't as valuable as the connotations when we're referring to how the word is used and received. I love metaphors, even if this next one is a bit clunky. If skilled and tailored communication is the greatest skill we can develop for our professional careers, I like to think of it like a sword and a suit of armor. Self-awareness is the maintenance and upgrades which ensure that sword and suit of armor are operating at maximum efficiency at all times. If you are a silver-tongued, skilled communicator, you can likely do well for yourself. However, without self-awareness, you run the risk of becoming the sort of colleague and manager you detested in previous roles. When I make repeated references to this concept of self-awareness throughout our conversations, I'm really referring to two things. First, I'm referring to the actual denotation of the word, remaining aware of our personal motivations, desires, predilections, essentially knowing who we are as people. The second concept is more of a feeling, but it's the one I consider to be more important when defining self-awareness. It's the sentiment which asks, are you listening to yourself? Are you hearing yourself? In literally every single place I've worked, including when I was self-employed, I cannot count the number of times I asked a variation of that question and stopped someone in their tracks, or just shifted the conversation to another topic. Have you ever been in a meeting where you see someone do something insanely rude and unprofessional, like cutting someone off, saying their opinion's dumb or, get over it or something of the like? Or have you ever been in a meeting where someone asks you a question you feel compelled to answer, like, why did you do this? When you know the answer you give is immaterial and it's only being posed to attack you? This is where the value of self-awareness is most crucial, because to help manage our emotional responses, we need to be able to take a step back. That sentiment, are you listening to yourself, or have you heard what you're saying, is incredibly powerful when wielded in a way which will resonate. I was once on a video call with someone I knew fairly well personally, who was a couple levels above me in the corporate hierarchy. They raised their voice and got very frustrated when I asked for a status update on a cross-functional deliverable. When there was a brief pause in their tirade, I let them know, hey, my headset's working just fine and I can make out what you're saying, so there's no need to raise your voice. I believe most people allow their emotions to permeate their communications in the office. And of course, I understand this. We're all human. But if we remain focused on the business objectives and deflect personal attacks with questions and statements such as, I understand that concern, but giving our primary objective of X, if we look at blah, 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 and statements like that, we can dictate conversations and keep things focused on our goal, which to me is always getting out of whatever meeting I'm in so I can go focus on work. When I coach those who are prone to responding with strong emotions, one of the tactics I advise them to do is filter any question they receive in their head prior to responding, especially if that question is coming from someone with a bit of a reputation. The filter consists of two parts. One, asking themselves, does this question address a need which will end this meeting, such as process alignment, assigning out tasks, blah, blah, blah? The second part, am I the correct person to address this ask? I advise them to do this because it immediately gets them thinking and evaluating, which is hard to do when you're contending with strong emotions. If you believe you are not responsible for addressing what's asked, you can end the conversation by communicating to whoever's asking that you hear the concerns, you'll notate it, but you need to consult with whoever before proceeding. These are the first inklings of cultivating self-awareness in the office, at least in my eyes. And while there are tons of other tactics we can use, keeping things focused on our actual work should always be our goal. I look forward to our next discussion, and I hope you stay happy, healthy, positive, and above all,